Hello again, YouTube. This is sort of gonna be a video. Well, it's another video that strays away from what you've seen out of my channel so far, whether it's the computers or the lighting or prepping. It's kind of about philosophy, politics, and really life in general. Um, it's a firm belief of mine. Let me shut the door. It's a firm belief of mine that you need to have a set of values in life. You can't you're not a real human being, I don't think, if you walk around and you ascribe to the cult of moral greatness. That you know people that just walk around and can see both sides of the issue and are moderate and try not to step on any toes, and they're real concerned about other people's feelings, and we'll change our opinion on the subject depending on who we're surrounded with, just to avoid the confrontation and all that bullshit. It bothers me. You know, I don't know how people could go through life and not have a set of values and a set of principles that through which they view their life. For good or wrong, at least stand for something. Because if you don't stand for something, you are just a useful idiot and nothing more. Um, that's how it is in my book. I you know Even if you don't want to ascribe to um, shall we say labels, conservative, liberal, objectivist, communist, whatever it is, at least stand for something. I don't care what you call it. For me, I am a cross. This would be a great example where you don't have to ascribe to any one stereotype. I'd consider myself a cross between a conservative and an objectivist. On this political spectrum, if if you can bear with me, on the political philosophical spectrum, you're gonna have you're probably gonna have your Republican Party here. Let's call this the center of the road. You'll have your classic Democrats over here. These are your Reagan Democrats. And somewhere down there, you're going to have your modern day Democrats. I don't know where they are. My whiteboards don't go that far. And so you're going to have your conservatives here. You're probably going to have your libertarians here. This is total anarchy. And objectivism is going to probably be right about here. Now, I'd probably be closest as a libertarian. If you know anything about these three philosophies in their general principles, you'll know where I'm coming from. The reason I call myself a hybrid is that some conservative stances I'm farther to the right on, and some objectivist things I'm farther to the left on, but not my bunch. Please understand that. Examples of this would be with conservatives. A lot of them are, they don't support gay marriage, or they they just they're like liberals, but not as intrusive. Um, See, my thing is, your life is your life, and you lead it the way you want, and you have no right to tell me how to live mine. That includes who I love, who I associate with, whether or not I'm allowed to be racist, all that. It's not saying I'm any of those things. I'm just saying, when it comes to conservatives, I disagree with them when they think that they can pass anti-gay marriage laws and everything else like that, because you're using the state to enforce your set of moral principles, which is exactly what most of them condemn the liberals for doing, and rightfully so. So I disagree with the conservatives on that. Now the objectivism, Ayn Rand, brilliant philosopher. The only place she loses me was with her. She kind of loses me with it. I can sort of see it, but I don't know how practical it would be, is her theories on taxation. I'm a little more towards libertarian conservative, that there do need to be government taxes, but by no means what we have today. I think a tax code of probably 5 pages would be sufficient, including the title page. A flat tax is probably the ultimate thing where everybody everybody pays the same. That way you don't have a huge segment of the population that doesn't pay anything demanding that the other half of the population, more specifically the other 1% of that other half, pay the most. It just doesn't fly with me very well. So that's sort of where I'm at. And one of the reasons I'm also making this video is I just wanted to show you guys these. This is the Atlas Shrugged poster. It's the same size that you would see outside your local theater. The difference with this one is it's signed by Harmon, can't really pronounce it, Caslow, and John, I'm not even going to try the last name. Sorry guys. It's signed by the executive producers, which is, I don't know, I like it. I believe that you are seeing Atlas Shrugged played out in American society today. You know, it's like living in the Twilight Zone to read Atlas Shrugged and then turn on the news. I mean, when you consider Atlas Shrugged was written over 50 years ago, you know, and in the book, just an example that comes off the top of my head. In the book, one of the factories that the main protagonist worked at closed, and they were having troubles finding the records, and a lot of it had to do with the bank that dealt with the factory. They I'm pretty sure that's how it went. Please forgive me. It's been a long day. That may not be right, but at the very least, there was a bank in there that was giving out loans not based on people's ability to pay them back, but based on their need. Does that sound anything like a subprime mortgage crisis to you? Because it kind of does to me. But that's just one example of the book and how relevant I think it is. So there's the movie theater. Now this here is one of my favorite things. This is just a picture of Dagny Taggart in the Taggart Transcontinental, the atrium there in the main part of the building, and then the Who is John Galt sign. But what you see in the center here, these are actual film cells from the movie. These are the actual 35 millimeter films that were sent out to the individual theaters. You see there, you've got Dagny and Hank Reardon. You have Ellis Wyatt on the TV discussing the oil shortage, and how we have plenty of it here in America if we just get the environmental assholes out of the way. That's within the first 5 minutes of the movie. Here you have one of the protest demonstrations. This is an actual real. They actually use footage from a real protest demonstration, and I know you can't see it in there, but in the film, one of those posters has one of those red fists. And my dad was in GM worked there for over 30 years. In the union, we still get these damn union. They're basically like the Communist Manifesto almost. You know, it's a bunch of communist dribble. And that big red fist was on the back of one of them. I keep them because they're just frightening to read. That there, the number 4, is going to be Hank and his wife, Lillian, I believe is her name, in the bedroom. Just a random granary, and Jim Taggart getting pissed because Dagny actually made rational business decisions. So, as you can see on the back, you do have a certificate of authenticity, and this is number 106 of only 500 produced. So, that there is probably one of the pride and joy on my wall here. Let's see. There's some other random political humor. SEIU member beating up someone at a meeting. This quote here, I think, is probably one of the most truthful things I have read in a long time. It says, this camera sucks, so I doubt you'll be able to read it. It says, "The uncontested absurdities of today are the accepted slogans of tomorrow. They come to be accepted by degrees, by precedent, by implication, by erosion, by default, by dint of constant pressure on one side and constant retreat on the other, until the day when they are suddenly declared to be the country's official ideology. That has a lot of truth to it. A lot of truth to it. It was worthy enough that I printed it off and hung it on my wall. And this here was given to me by my English teacher when I graduated earlier this year. She would give everyone who took her advanced English class one of these plaques with a quote that she thought would apply to their life. And this one is, happiness is the state of consciousness. Happiness is that state of consciousness which proceeds from the achievements of one's values. Ayn Rand, of course. So, that's just a little drop of my political feelings hanging on my wall. They're there not only because those two things are particularly pretty to have hanging on the wall, but because it just anyone, because I do have very few of them. There are a couple liberal friends, and I know what's hanging up here just drives them nuts when they're over here. So that one up there is by no means political. It's just a centerfold from an old sci-fi magazine that had Fear, the game Fear on. I just always had it hanging up there because I don't know, it looked kind of cool. So yeah, I believe that just you can't really function as a human being if you really don't have any set of values and beliefs. Now, it's at this point that I'm going to take a moment and diverge to a little prepping topic. A lot of you out there, you can prep food, you can prep water, you can prep, backup sources of energy. You can do all that stuff, and it's great, and it is, of course, the most important. But after you've done all that, I believe that to truly be well-rounded and really self-reliant, you need to have a strong philosophical and political base. You need to know what you believe and why you believe it and be able to defend it. Because even though we're preparing for hard times, and once those hard times arrive, obviously the time for debate is over and it is now time for action. But we're not there yet. I hope we never get to the point of what a lot of us prepare for, but we're not there. Society is not at that point yet. And I believe that to truly be prepared and helpful, you need to try and be able to bring people over to our side. You need to, and understand, when I say bring people over, I mean people who are actually interested in having a discussion. Because a lot of liberals, a lot of commies, a lot of college kids, they do not want to hear another side of it. What they believe in their little utopia, snow globe of world is right. They don't want to hear any challenge, and they're not open to a debate. That's their own prerogative. Let them go. But there are still people out there who haven't totally made up their minds and sort of leaning one way, sort of leaning another, and they can still be reached. I think if you have the intellectual capacity to reach someone and help them realize what is going on and why, it hopefully set them on the right path. I think that is probably more help than you could ever give to a person, aside from giving them food if the worst ever happened. You give a man a fish and feed him for a day. You teach a man how to fish and why he has to fish now instead of being able to go to the store and buy it from his local grocer. He can eat for a lifetime. I know it's a really bad analogy. Don't yell at me about it because I'll delete your comment. But yeah, that's just some of my thoughts. One thing I do is I always have one book around I'm reading. I bought Killing Lincoln by Bill O'Reilly. Haven't heard really anything about the book. I've never read any of O'Reilly's books, but I figured I'll give it a try. I just finished the other book I was reading, and hell, let's see what happens. Because there's one thing especially, if you're trying to learn history, don't just print off dates, a bunch of dates, and try and memorize them, because it's not going to work. You need to try and put yourself there. You need to put yourself in that situation. I'm only a few pages into this book, and I have learned, that's the difference, more in these couple pages than I probably did in my entire U.S. history class 2 years ago. Because they didn't really focus on any of the founding stuff, because, it's a bunch of kooky white racist people. They were more interested in the 60s bullshit. But all most modern books do is they just give you dates and regurgitate them. You don't learn anything. You retain it long enough to puke it up on a test, and then you have to start. Then you throw it all out. And you start cramming something else in there. By actually putting it in human terms, in reading and what's going on, and try and place yourself there. Try and picture yourself there at those events. You are going to learn, retain, and be able to communicate history a lot better than if you were just trying to puke up like the X happened in this date at this time because of this. If that's how you're trying to learn things, more power to you, but it's probably going to be easier if you can picture yourself there, if you can try and tell it in a story format. That's how communication was, that's how information was communicated for thousands of years before, books and other ways of keeping information. Things were always in stories. Dates and times weren't so much as important as the lessons that history had taught. Obviously, it helps to know when the country was founded. It helps to know what happened on what date, and why. And, I'm not saying discount dates, but what actually happened in history as opposed to when it happened is a lot more important. So, that's just some of my thoughts. Random philosophical moment, I suppose. Let's see, for some of the books on my bookshelf, I apologize for the length of this video, by the way. Let's see, where did it go? Uh-oh. Was going to show it to you. It's the book that will probably enrage leftists more than any other book ever will. And I don't see it, which means I'm going to go look for it as soon as this video's over. Cause, oh wow, is it a good book. It's Ayn Rand's Virtue of Selfishness. The cover page alone will send liberals into a rage. And all those collectivist utopian dorks. Here it is. I knew it was somewhere. It's never far. Virtue of Selfishness. I'll just give you, here. I'm just going to read you some of the stuff off the front. Ethics is not a mystic fantasy, nor a social convention, nor a disciplinable subjective luxury. Ethics is an objective necessity of man's survival, not by the grace of the supernatural, nor by your neighbors, nor by your whims, but by the grace of reality and the nature of life. The objectivist ethics proudly advocates and upholds rational, keyword here, rational selfishness, which means the value required for man's survival qua man, which means the values required for human survival, not the values produced by the desires, the feelings, the whims, or the needs of the irrational brutes who have never outgrown the primordial practice of human sacrifices. That includes all you welfare people out there, all your statists too, about human sacrifices. Ayn Rand is one of the most... No, we'll skip that. It's not important to you. See, these are just the essays in the book, because this book is just a compilation of essays and lectures. Great read if you ever get time.
Mental Health versus Mysticism, Self-Sacrifice by Nathaniel Braden. Um, this really goes after religion. So, if you're religious, yes, you might. I still recommend reading it. Um, because if you just cannot stand to hear the other side, at least, then you have no real business talking about it. I know that might sound like it might contradict what I said earlier, but it doesn't. Trust me. You need to know what your opponents believe, what your enemies believe, and why they believe it. You at least need to know, try to understand their rational thinking. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it or try and accept it and compromise with it. You need to know what it is if you're going to debate properly. Um, Chapter 3, The Ethics of Emergencies. Chapter 4, Conflicts of Man and its Interests. Isn't everyone selfish? Psychology of pleasure. Doesn't life require compromise? That's a question mark, and it's obviously no. How does one lead a rational life in an irrational society? The cult of moral grayness. That's a big one. Collectivized ethics. The monument builders. Man's rights. Collectivized rights. The nature of government. Government financing in a free society. The divine right of stagnation. Racism. Counterfeit individualism. And the argument from intimidation. So those are just some of the things that are discussed in this book, and it's great. I love it. But yeah, I know I'm rambling. I'm sure many of you stopped watching long ago, so I'm just gonna cut it off here. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys later.